I've been privileged to have lived in 5 different countries on the African continent. I've lived in Botswana, Malawi, Zambia, Nigeria, and Morocco. And I've also travelled in South Africa, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. I can't say which is my favourite country because I had wonderful experience in different ways in each one of those countries. The first time I went to Africa was in 2000 when I moved to Botswana and took a job as a trainer of teachers at Tenota College of Education, which isn't too far from Francistown. I love living in Botswana. It's a very peaceful, stable country and has been since its independence in 1966. The people are warm and friendly, and it's the most beautiful country you can possibly imagine. I used to love going up to the Okavango Delta and to Kasane and into the Chobe National Park, where you got some of the best wildlife in the world, and it's relatively unspoilt by tourism. Botswana has a policy which keeps its tourism fairly exclusive, so it's slightly expensive, but when you live there, you get discounts on everything because you're a resident, so we're really able to enjoy. Whilst in Botswana, I had the opportunity to travel extensively as well in Zimbabwe. This was a time when the land grabbing had just begun in Zimbabwe and the currency had gone into freefall. So like many Swanas and other foreigners living in Botswana, I used to frequently cross the border at Plumtree and spend some time, particularly in Bulawayo and in the nearby Matopos National Park, which again is one of the most beautiful places on this earth. A decade later, I returned to Africa when I moved to Malawi and I worked at St Andrew's International School in Blantyre. Malawi is one of the poorest countries in Africa, but to me it was an incredible place. The people were so warm and so friendly, and I had the most wonderful experience. Lake Malawi, which dominates the country, was only a couple of hours from Blantyre, so it was incredible to be able to go to the lake at weekends and for holidays and spend so much time swimming, snorkeling, and just chilling by the beach in the most amazing location you can possibly imagine. From Malawi, I moved to Zambia and I lived in Livingstone in Southern Province. Now, Livingstone is best known for Mossi National Park and what in English is known as Victoria Falls, but more commonly known locally as Mossi. I used to drive to work and see the mists of the falls in the distance. It was just incredible to know that you were so close to one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Very much like Malawi, Zambians are among the most friendly people in the world, and I was lucky to make so many good friends there. In fact, some of my best friends still to this day are Zambians, and when I got married, a number of my friends were present at my wedding. After living in Zambia, I returned to Europe for a few years before moving to Nigeria. I worked at the Norwegian International School in Port Harcourt. Now, professionally, it wasn't the best experience of my life. I worked for a crazy woman, to be fair. But there was a lot which was good about living in Nigeria. Huge admiration for the people in Nigeria. Everyone is hustling in a certain way. Everyone is doing their best to make the best of their situation. So you don't see anyone sitting and waiting or begging for money. Everyone is trying to do their thing, and I really admired that about the people. Nigeria was by far the toughest place I've lived in Africa. There were constant power outages, far more so than in southern Africa. You live against the backdrop of the hum of inverters and generators, which people are using to generate electricity because the state-sponsored companies are just unable to cope with the demand. Also, in terms of security, if I'm honest, I never felt quite as safe in Nigeria. Now, to be fair, I didn't feel unsafe particularly, but there was always that kind of nagging feeling in the back of your mind that you might be more at risk than I would have felt in Malawi, Botswana, or Zambia. A few years later, I ended up working in Morocco, and I worked in Casablanca, which is an incredible city. And Morocco is a wonderful country, so rich in terms of its culture and in the wonderful people that you encounter. I found that all over Africa, whether Southern Africa, West Africa or North Africa, that the people are the real gems of the continent. Fortunately, I didn't stay long in Morocco But again, that was really to do with external factors and the COVID-19 outbreak, which meant I couldn't bring my family to Morocco to join me. Otherwise, I'd happily have stayed there for a few years. I feel really blessed to have worked in so many countries in Africa and to have travelled extensively on the continent. It really is the most vibrant continent that I've worked and lived in. There are a lot of stereotypes about Africa, mainly to do with war, poverty, and misery, but most of them are untrue. Yes, a lot of people do live in relative poverty, but people are friendly, people are outgoing, and there's such a rich sense of tradition and culture, unlike anywhere else in the world. The only places I've experienced similar would be some of the countries in Asia I visited. But for me, there's just something about Africa. There's something about that continent. I'm not an African, but I'd have to say that Africa lives in my heart, and it's the part of the world where I most love to visit. And hopefully one day I'll be able to work there again.